you met Mr. Shivendu Majumdar. He's come on previous match that you've come. Shivendu
Yeah.
sahab, आपने मिले
Yeah,
ना?
yeah.
Yeah. I have not. I have heard him speaking.
So Johan carries that heavy load of all the millennials on his shoulders.
It's this burden that Giraj has put on me that now I live with, apparently.
No, it's not a burden. You like the Hercules thing carrying the Atlas on top, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Rupali, as well.
Rupali also. I think Rupali is the one who's been coordinating with the council members.
All right.
Hello.
Hi.
So we have another interesting guy joining us, Rajiv Mahajan.
Today's topic is also very interesting.
Yeah, this is a lead up. We've done one MAD earlier also, where we had a smaller group, now a larger group. Then we'll do another MAD eventually, which is going to be even a larger group. Hi, Rajiv. Rajiv, you're on mute. Okay, Akshay also joins in.
Yeah, good evening, Giraj. And everybody, Sanjeev, I can see Wali. Yeah.
Hi, sir.
We have Akshay also now.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Akshay.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So, okay, I think we can take time out. Okay, there's Bandhana joining us. So a lot of guys joining us for the first time online. So Rajiv is joining us for the first time online. Akshay, I think you've not joined us online ever.
No, I haven't, but I've been on one of the offline ones.
You've been the offline ones, yes. Hi Bandhana, how are you? You've joined us.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Bandhana.
Hello.
Good to have you. Yeah, so good to have you. Hi, Rahul.
Hi, Giraj. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Rahul.
Hello.
Krishna also joins us. Ridhima is joining us. I think she's put her camera off or whatever. So it's 6 o'clock. We'll wait. The convention has it. We'll wait 5 more minutes for the latecomers, and then 6 or 5 we take off.
Okay.
So Vandana is making her debut on MAD. So far, all the other guys who are here have already been on the MAD sometime or the other. Vandana.
Right.
So we, as a protocol, we allow the debutants to speak more than the other regular guys. So
I'll try my best.
We'll keep coming back to you.
Sure.
So very quickly, I think we'll take the advantage of, okay, there is somebody joining us from iPad. I don't know who's this. Oh, that's Mr. Girish Rao joining us.
Yeah, hi, Giraj, how are you?
Hi, how are you? What a pleasure.
Oh, good to see you too, after a long time.
After a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Wonderful.
Great. So how many of us are there on this call today?
I think everybody who said yes is joining in.
Okay,
so that's
great.
Wonderful. We have Rishi who joined in. Rishi, hi.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
And we have Nari joining
Hey,
us from Pondicherry. Hi, Nari.
Hi, Nari.
Hi.
And we have Vivek Anand joining us. Vivek, hi.
Hi everyone.
Hi,
I am
hi,
joining
Vivek.
from Gurgaon.
And not from Mauritius. You better clarify.
Yeah, I know. I wish I was joining from Mauritius.
Okay, Vivek represents Mauritius tourism. So he heads Mauritius tourism.
Oh, that's nice.
And he's trying to head Mauritius tourism from Gurgaon.
Okay. I guess that's a digital world for you.
How is tourism now? What is the situation now?
Well, the situation is same as it was 1 year back. We are nowhere, in a manner of speaking, and the borders are still closed. There is no clarity because there's a second wave everywhere. So maybe we'll open in June, July. The thinking is that by that time the frontliners, not only in Mauritius but in other destinations, will be vaccinated. Frontliners plus some other people, and so will the travelers. For example, India. Right now, what we are looking at is not really the travel TG. travel TG starts from 25 years onwards to about, say 60, but majority is 25 to 50, and they're not vaccinated as yet. I guess in India, the way we are going, 1 million a day, maybe in another, 2 months, a lot of people will get vaccinated, and then I think we're all good to go. We are all waiting.
Wonderful. So Jose also joins us now. Shall we begin? It's okay. It's 2 more minutes. Hi, Sridhar.
Hello, Giraj. Hi, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
My apologies, I missed it last time. We are so used to calendars. It didn't reflect in my calendar, and I just let the Saturday go by.
So we have almost a full house today. Oh, I see LK also joining in. Wow, this is terrific. This is grand, man. I mean, so we have Lloyd joining us, and we have LK joining us. Hi, LK. Hi, Lloyd. Hi, Naresh.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Giraj. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Wonderful.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, we have Sandeep Tiwari joining in. I think Sandeep Tiwari joins us from Toronto.
Sandeep Tiwari of the LG fame.
Yeah, of the LG fame.
Wow, he's in Toronto. What's he doing there?
You check, no? We'll ask him to introduce himself.
आपके पास तो बहुत सारे LG, ex-LG लोग पहुंच गए हैं. इसका मतलब घुमा फिरा के मतलब लगता है मेरा कॉलेज का दिन वापस आ गए लगता है.
आपके कॉलेज के दिन वापस आ गए. We've gone to IMT Ghaziabad, who doing the back-end research for us.
Imagine that.
So that's why
Hey, hi, Naresh.
there's a LK flavor in everything that we're doing now, LK.
Cool, man.
So Giraj, Naresh Gupta and our ex-colleagues.
Hi, Vivek.
Hi, how are you doing, Naresh?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well.
So good. So this is the forum for you guys to meet. Wonderful.
Yeah, considering we both of us stay about 3-4 kilometers apart and don't manage to meet in person.
I've heard that one. I was listening to an interview of Amitabh Bachchan with Dharmender, and he was saying they stay, very close to each other, but they rarely meet. So that's similar with you guys.
Who is Amitabh Bachchan and who is Dharmender in this case?
Oh yes, that's the spirit.
I'm neither.
Neither am I.
Rahul, is your mic on, Rahul?
Yeah, Giraj, yeah.
Hi, welcome. Chitra also joins us.
Hi.
Chitra, we have a full house today, so this is going to be interesting. Sandeep, can you listen to what we're saying? Sandeep, is your mic on? Is your connection good? Sandeep, can you hear me? I don't think there's something wrong with Sandeep's connection. So okay. So some people are making their debut on M.A.D.D. All of us are either members of the jury or of the council. So while this is a build-up to BRISYL, but in the M.A.D.D. forum there are some debutants. So I'll request people who are joining us for the first time to introduce themselves to the group. I begin with Sridhar. Sridhar, if you could just take a minute and introduce yourself to the group here.
Thanks, Giraj. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. I'm Sridhar Narayan. I work with Adobe. I spent about 1.5 decades with Microsoft earlier and started my career way back in IBM. At Adobe, I manage some of the large clients within India, and I have a team as well who manages this portfolio of the solutions. My expertise primarily comes in interacting with various brands over the last 20 plus years across enterprise customers in the enterprise space, be it with Microsoft or with IBM, and really running transformations for them across digital transformation portfolio, looking at how brands have transformed over a period of time. Various stories to talk about as we go along, how some of the brands we have engaged have transformed in this new world of COVID. We found new digital channels and new channels, and these businesses are growing significantly well for them. Of course, there is e-commerce, but beyond e-commerce, there is customers centricity, which is helping them grow quite a bit. So you can count on me on those aspects to be brought to the table here. That's about me. I live in Bangalore. And anything else? Anybody has any questions? Happy to answer them.
So did you have any overlap with Rishi? Rishi spent 16 years in Microsoft, Rishi.
I'm sure you would have crossed our paths.
Rishi, your mic is off.
I think I was on mute. So Sridhar, which part of Microsoft were you in?
Consulting services, Rishi. I know you well.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wonderful. Wow, it's a small world.
Along with Mitul Patel.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And Sridhar, when did you join Adobe? I left Adobe 4 years ago.
2017, just after you left, Jose. I took over your role, I think.
My God. Crazy loop getting formed here. Fine. So Sridhar, welcome to the M.A.D.D session. And I hope we make a lot of sense at the end of the day today. Vandana is joining us for the first time on the M.A.D forum. Vandana, next 1 minute, please introduce yourself.
Right, I'll try to time it for 1 minute. Let me just start telling. My name is Vandana Chetri. I'm a co-founder of Fair Play Sports. So I come from a sports background. So that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. I've been working with a lot of sports agencies. I'm sure you guys have heard about iOS, Sporty Solution, Quan, and all these guys. So we've worked with them and then, of course, started my own agency. Started with like 3 athletes. Now we've got around 21 athletes with us. So not only management of athletes, we also work with a lot of brands in terms of doing a lot of sponsorship, branding, marketing, only in terms of sports. So, the brand that you see, I'm sure, all the Microsoft and LG and everybody has already done in a lot of sports like IPL, ISL and all these. That is what we do, connecting brands to sports, some of the athletes that I manage is like Saina Nehwal, Sunil Chetri. So these are the brands, then like, for example, Saina is right now with Anchor. That is the kind of a brand association we do with the athletes and with the sports. So we've been doing this for last 10 years and that's how I've come into this. And I actually did a couple of meetings with Gogi last when he was with LG, and that is the time we were trying to connect LG with other sports that we were managing. And now, of course, he invited me to be a part of this.
Wonderful. So glad to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Girish Roy, he joins us from Mangalore. Girish, Mangalore, you're in Mangalore, right?
Absolutely, I'm in Mangalore. That's right. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Good to be here. My name is Girish Rao, and for those of some of you will know me, Lloyd, Sandeep know me very well. But I spent most of my life in the consumer durable business. Spent about 24, 25 years between BPL and LG. BPL for better part of it, 4 years in LG, head of sales and marketing in LG. Post that, I moved on to a completely different line of business. I moved on to SR Steel and set up a steel retail business for them called the SR Hypermart. Ran that business for 8 years and spent the last 2 years of my career in the Middle East, managing the SR Steel operations in the Middle East, which are looking after the entire GCC countries plus Iraq. Post that, 2016, I said give back stage. So I'm actually a co-founder of enterprise, actually an NGO called Insals Pro, which basically is something to do with all the sales community and the sales fraternity in this country. We try to build a community and give back as much because we believe that it's a very neglected community. And I also was associated with the enterprise, which was for the consumer durable business called Kodak, which we wanted to bring in the entire industry together, all the stakeholders, the government, the traders, the manufacturers, all put together, create a forum to discuss and betterment of the sales consumer durable industry. Kind of on the back burner last year due to COVID, but hopefully it'll be revived this year. Currently based in Mangalore, I do a bit of consultancy. I help a local large steel trader revive his business and get back into modernization. And I got fed, I chill out most of the time.
Oh, yes. So that's where we caught him. So I caught him when he was golfing and he said,
yeah, that's right.
You got to be there with us on BRISYL. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Girish, for joining us. We also have Rajiv Mahajan, who's making his debut in M.A.D on first time online. He's come to the physical session once. Rajiv, very quickly, a minute about yourself.
So good evening, everybody. I'm perhaps I'm not for the market, but then Giraj feel that I fit into this frame. So my background is from Indian Air Force. I served Indian Air Force for about 29 years, and in between, I had been on deputations to United Nations, Ministry of Earth Sciences, India Meteorological Department, and so on. Presently, I am scientific advisor to Government of India in Ministry of Science and Technology. So it's a R&D funding agency where I work in, SERB, Science and Engineering Research Board. And I'm involved in a lot of schemes and programs, and some of them I have conceived and implemented as well as launched in recent times through PMO. That's a small part of my introduction. Thank you.
Okay, so Raji is an avid cyclist and a fitness freak. Plus, he's also something that he rarely mentions. He's also a PhD, so he's Dr. Rajiv Mahajan. So thank you, Rajiv, for coming in. The idea was to bring in some diversity. So we've got somebody from the social sector. We have, she's not here today. She's going to be there for the next match. We have Purnota Behel, who runs a wonderful organization called Cuddles, which funds the food for and nutritional food for young cancer patients. Kids all across the country. So we wanted somebody from the social sector. Lloyd and Chitra, of course, are aware of this. We discussed this. We wanted a diverse group to be a part of the council. So that's where we thought of Rajiv and got him on. All right, Sandeep, over to you. If you could introduce yourself, this is your first MAD. We would love to hear from you. Of course, I'm sure you would know LK and you would know Mr. Girish Rao.
Very good evening, everyone. I'm Sandeep Tiwari. I come from similar background to what a couple of speakers have spoken of from consumer durables. If I may say so, born and brought up in consumer durables, literally, with a stint of around 11 years at LG, 8 years at Samsung, around 2 odd years at Bharti, and then roughly around 2.5 years at Usha International. And that's what I bring on table, some 24 odd years of work takes for the discussion and some value added family put in. Thank you so much.
Sandeep, I hear what are you doing at the other end of the world? I'm still curious to know that.
I've actually moved over to Canada, and last year I moved along with my family over to Canada. And so when everyone was busy stuck at home, I thought I should change the home and move over to Canada. So I'm here on a PR and have started something on my own in area of consultancy for Indian organizations. Looking forward to moving over to Canada. So it is a startup in that area, and both me and my wife are consultant in the same.
Which part of Canada are you based?
I'm in outskirts of Toronto. That's Oakville.
Okay, I will connect with you later.
Brilliant. Would love to.
Wonderful. Vivek, quick 1 minute.
Hi guys, my name is Vivek Anand. Before I move on to what I've been doing, Giraj and I are classmates from DPS Mathura Road, passed out long back. I have been handling the Mauritius portfolio. I had the Mauritius tourism in India for the last 7 years. The idea is for the destination to stay relevant, and that is what I have to ensure. In the middle of about 1,000 other destinations, beach destinations, so to speak. That's what I do. Backstory is I've spent many years in publishing industry, the printing industry, advertising. That was that, and that got me into the I'm part of the Mauritius government, so I'm also a semi-bureaucrat in a way of speaking. That's what I do.
All right. So are you Vivek? Are you still an Indian citizen, or you are a Mauritian citizen now?
No, I am very much an Indian citizen.
All right.
Unfortunately, they don't give me citizenship while I sit in India. So maybe one day.
So one of the reasons why I wanted Vivek to come on board is that our third BRISYL, when we do that in 2023, Mauritius is going to play host, and we're going to do it in Mauritius, at least the citation and the citation giving and the jury and the council meeting. So that is the reason why I wanted Vivek to be on board. Yeah, Vivek. So
great idea.
We have your tacit approval there. All right. Okay. So the rest of the guys, I think for the benefit of people who are joining in for the first time, if everybody can spend about 10 seconds introducing yourself, we begin from Mr. Shivendu. Shivendu, quick one line about what you do right now.
Working with Sharp for the last 20 years. People will be surprised why I'm hanging in so long, because I have handled different portfolios in the last 20 years. So that has kept me attracted. That's all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Rahul, quick one line about what you do.
Hi everyone, I am heading a media vertical of a radio business that is a part of Jennings Pascal Group. Brand name is MyFM. We are present in tier 2, tier 3 market of India.
Yeah. Rishi, quick 1 minute, one sentence about what you do.
Rishi Srivastav, about 25 years in the tech industry. I'm actually a venture capitalist. I run 2 funds just now.
Super. Akshay?
Good evening, everyone. Around 20 years of experience in advertising, marketing, and sales. So started with advertising and now currently chilling and looking out for a job thanks to COVID.
All right, wonderful. Nari, if you can actually in 1 sentence or 2 sentences, fill us up with what you do. Nari, yeah. Your mic is on mute.
Even my speaker seems to be on mute, on and off. Anyway. So hi, my name is Narayan Swami. Vinayak is my son whose name appears on this thing, and he's the reason. Specialty is in marketing research and consumer marketing. And before we moved to Pondicherry to work with the mentally disabled community, I was one of the presidents at Ipsos, and with a very wide range of work in consumer behavior in all sorts of categories, but notably services and tech. So that's who I am.
Wonderful. Johan, 2 sentences.
Hi everyone, my name is Johan. I live here in Bangalore. I started my own agency and we're a marketing agency for early stage startups. We've been doing that for a bit now, and we run a few programs for early stage startups, and we are also building an EdTech platform that's currently in prototype phase. I'm happy to be here and be with all of you.
Johan, you have to say that favorite line of mine, the role that you got to play.
What is I call it bearing the burden of the millennial perspective that Giraj has put on me without any qualification on my part, I would say.
All right. Naresh, quick two sentences about you.
Hi, I run an agency called Bang in the Middle. I otherwise am a wildlife photographer. Hi, Sandeep. Hi, Nari. Good to see you after a very long time.
Cool. LK, quick 2 sentences about you.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm basically a career marketer. Currently, I'm dividing my time between doing marketing and strategy consulting for startups and art and music. That's what I do.
Wow. Chitra, if you're there.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all here. I'm a journalist. I've been covering various things all through from Economic Times to Business Standard to Business World to now with Hindu Business Line. But I think for the longest time, I've been covering marketing and advertising. I guess that's why Giraj has invited me here.
Wonderful. Jose, you left.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Jose Leon, the CEO at Indigo Consulting, which is a DBT, a digital business transformation arm of Publicis Group here in India.
Cool. Sanjeev?
Hi, I'm Sanjeev Malhotra. I have a background in marketing and sales in telecom and consumer durable. Currently, I'm with Behind the Moon. So welcome all, and very nice to have you all here.
Okay, a very quick introduction of the ladies behind all that we do. So there is Shushita here. Shushita, you can say a hi and.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sushita. I've been associated with Behind the Moon for, I think, a couple of years now. And this is my second MAD session only, but I'm enjoying getting all the perspectives because marketing and branding is not really my area. But I'm learning a lot, so happy to be connected.
And Shushita handles the jury and LK for us. Ridhima, quick 2 lines.
Hi, I'm Ridhima. I've been working with Behind the Moon consultants for the past year and learning as much as I can from all the people.
Yeah, and Ridhima is the one who's our backbone. Rupali, quick 2 sentences about you. Rupali handles the MAD Council.
Hi, everybody. Really happy to be here, and it's really a good learning journey for me too. So happy to be a part of this. This is my second MAD session, and as Sushita rightly said, that thoroughly enjoying it.
Wonderful. All right, so we take off. So Lloyd, I come to you like always because that's the precedent we've set. What we are discussing today is what actions will qualify as must do for a brand to be in sync with its TA, the environment, and society at large. What actions will qualify? So if you can sort of set the ball rolling, and then we'll go on to all the guys who are joining us for the first time. Yeah, Lloyd, over to you. 2 minutes.
Thanks, Giraj, and I haven't introduced myself. So I've been a old corporate slave, 27 years, roughly divided between FMCG and technology. Pepsi for about 13 years, and then equal amounts of time between HP, Motorola, and the Tatas. And great to be here and meet a lot of old friends. Quickly rolling on to the topic, I think Giraj kicked this off a few months ago when in one of the MAD sessions, he talked about having, let's say a recognition for brands that have stayed in sync with consumers over a long period of time. And in the course of the discussions, we've got various people in. I think what Giraj was trying to evolve, and rightly so, was that a lot of awards are kind of recognize, immediate achievements of good advertising, good communication, or whatever. This is something that's looking at it slightly more holistically, talking about the need for brands to stay relevant with their audiences. And also in the context of what's happened in the last year or 14 months since COVID, the need for brands to constantly reinvent themselves. And just looking through these backgrounds and lots of old friends here, it's great when, even individuals can kind of, take some time and reinvent their entire personal strategy, right? I've known Girish as, a consumer durable stalwart, and nice to see him kind of ease into steel retailing and more recently into, giving something back through the sales thing and what the work he's doing in the Isha Foundation. Or even more delighted to see old friend Sandeep Tiwari actually use the last year to actually reinvent completely, getting into a completely new space. So I think part of what Giraj, Sanjeev, and the team was seeking to do was looking at businesses and brands in the context of the relevance and the closeness and how they can sync with consumers in changing times. And I think one of the whole ideas behind the BRISYL Awards, as it's now being christened, is looking at that aspect. And what we're going to talk through possibly in the next 40 odd minutes is what are the key points that we need to take into account when we evaluate a brand's resonance and relevance with the changing new age consumer. And one of the things, again, that I think Giraj has rightly done is to try and get people from diverse backgrounds, right? So having, people from like Rajiv Mahajan, for example, bringing in, a very interesting perspective from where he stands, or indeed Johan, kind of, the burden of the millennials, but really getting even the Gen Z and the new age perspective, right? A lot of us are kind of very hung up on brands that have this great pedigree and history. But I read recently somewhere that, the average age of a company in the Fortune 500 is now down to 14 years, right? 40 years back, an average age of a company in the Fortune 500 was as high as 70 years, right? The fact that things are changing. And if you just look back at, let's say, an event as recently as the last IPL, 3 of the main sponsors weren't around 10 years ago, right? A far cry from the days when, the ITCs and the Wills and the Pepsis and Coke sponsored it. So I think the whole idea is to capture something that defines what it takes for a brand to stay relevant and over a period of time. And we could kick it off with that thought. So Giraj.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Like always, Lloyd gives it a sets the perspective and sets the ball rolling. We have in the meanwhile Dhananjay has joined us. Dhananjay, you can say hi. There are a lot of your old friends here. And Dhananjay, 2 lines about yourself.
Well, I've been a follower of Mr. Giraj lifelong, and have learned a lot of beautiful things, deep insights into marketing, into various good things of life, and feel good about following him.
I hope you're including old monk in good things in life. Correct. Sure. All right. Thanks, Dhananjay. Thanks for joining in. I go over to Rishi now. Rishi, your perspective. So, what are a must-dos as from your perspective for a brand, to be in sync with the TA?
Sorry,
Okay.
Giraj, may I just intervene here?
Yeah, please.
As part of the kicking off of BRISYL, we were asked to answer some questions on online in an online questionnaire.
All right.
Which I think I at least answered it. I wonder if everybody's had the chance to do that. But I think part of that, those questions were about what do we believe goes into keeping a brand relevant, making a brand relevant, being in sync? So I would assume that you got that response from maybe 20 odd people, perhaps?
No, more. We've tabulated that, LK. I thought I'll bring that up. I thought I'll bring that up towards the end of the session.
Acha,
that we can
acha,
get some fresh
okay.
perspective from people who've not answered, and
All right.
So
Okay.
we've tabulated
So
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
So thank you, Giraj. Actually, LK raised a very valid point. I was actually going to share what I shared at that for that question, and I think Lloyd put it very aptly in terms of launching off as to what a brand should look for. But one of the things that in addition to that I would think is super important is that gone are the days when the brands would think about the buyer. Now it's the time for brands to connect and think about the consumer, and those are two different things. Because to give you an example, my son is actually the consumer of the phone that he uses, but actually I'm the buyer. And if the brand connected with me, frankly, they would have very little chance relative to my son, who's really the one who's consuming the product. So when I started my career in sales and marketing, you would essentially focus a lot on the buyer and the economic buyer, if you will. But one of the things that's super important now is that the final consumer of the product, and this holds true for both B2B as well as B2C brands. A lot of B2B brands, at least in the world that I work in and invest in, realize that they focus themselves on the monetary aspects of it. But finally, that product is either an ingredient for a service or a product to an end consumer, and consumers care about that. I'll give you an example. I have a deep energy company in my portfolio, and we build new batteries. And those new batteries, while being more efficient and more and certainly more competitive versus lithium-ion and others, but one of the key elements is the fact that they're completely non-toxic, non-flammable, and large consumers of energy storage solutions today care about that. So to me, if I was to just add my 2 cents, I would say, in addition to what Lloyd already launched off with, is that brands that are in sync are the ones who address both the audiences. One, the buyer, and two, the consumer.
Cool. That's very nice, and I think. But Rishi, can you sort of just build up that context with the energy company? I mean, I sort of missed that. I think for my benefit and
the energy storage company. So energy storage is a humongous area, right? I mean, because if you look at climate change, the Paris Climate Accord has actually decided that the world is going to come together to keep the temperature levels between 1.5 and 2 degrees increase by the year 2100. Otherwise, it would be actually north of 3 degrees Celsius. Because if you see the way we are going, the amount of carbon footprint that we're creating, and the number one reason for that, by the way, is just 2 things. One is the utilities, the electricity we all use. It's the biggest, polluter. And the second thing is transportation, not necessarily only cars, but also all kinds of forms of transportation. Now, there is enough renewable today. The world, including India, has enough opportunity for renewable energy to be created because of wind and solar. But the problem is, the time shifting, because solar energy gets created in the 6-hour slot from 7 a.m. till about 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. And the peak hours is in the evening. So you need energy storage. Now, energy storage, like things like lithium-ion and others, are very, very toxic, corrosive, highly, very high carbon footprint. So, when you talk of these, so in a B2B concept, when you today talk of energy storage to some of the leading global players like Shell, my company has a venture with Shell. They say they have to be carbon, neutral by 2050, zero actually carbon footprint. So they care about, because their consumers care about. Shell has retail presence across the globe, and they tell us that consumers will not go to a fuel station of Shell if they think that Shell is polluting the earth. So, you've got to look at both the consumer of this product. While, gas is, when I sell my energy storage, I sell it to Shell. I don't really sell it to the consumer, but the consumer cares about the fact that it's non-toxic and creates impact. So you have to, the brand has to ensure that it takes in consideration both the economic buyer as well as the consumer of the product. That's what I was trying to elaborate with that experience, with that example.
Wonderful. I think it explains that beautifully. Yeah, that's a significant thing, and I'm sure as we go along, we've been discovering that. I think in some of the previous MADs, we've talked about how the consumer is becoming more conscious of what the company does behind, or what the brand is doing behind the scene. It's not just about the consumer connect or what they present to the consumer. What's happening behind is also of a larger concern to the consumer in today's time. So yeah, that this illustration of the energy company is very well put. Okay, we go to Bandhana, who's making a debut on M.A.D.D. Bandhana, your inputs. Over to you.
So actually, it was very nice listening to different kinds of, consumer and marketing and advertisement. What happens in sports is very, very, I won't say very different, but it is looked differently. Because in sports, you already know what is the consumer, who are the consumer. You have this youth that you can attract, which is why you see a lot of mobile companies spending a lot of money in your IPL and ISL and this and that. Because the kids are there, they'll be watching all the games. Then you have men and women category differently. Then that is how they will do it. So then you see how in sports the branding has changed. Earlier times you'll only find the biggest brands coming on sports, because they wanted that, they had the money actually to actually sponsor IPL that time. Then the whole wave of your Kamla Pasan and this and that started coming. And then the whole wave of, exactly mobile companies started coming, because mobile nowadays has become, everybody's got it. And then you want to launch every 3 months a new kind of a mobile. So that is how they connect, and different sports has different way of connecting. You have brands who will come into IPL or leagues, so to say. You have ISL and I leagues and all these things where you have larger number of eyeballs. So you can connect well, you can do 6 months of branding, you can come with the advertisements and this and that, and you can do that branding in that month. Then you have other kind of branding, which is like with athlete. You have a product which you feel that, okay, maybe Saina Nehwal is the person who can do this kind of a product. Then you have Dhoni, then you have Virat. You take the personality of the athlete and you match up with your product, and that's how you do the branding and stuff. So that's a different kind of connect. I mean, in sports, in fact, in IPL, if you see, there are 110 brands every year coming in. Very few of them can actually make a mark. I mean, everybody right now, so many of us here, tell me if anybody knows more than 7 brands in IPL, because you can't always know who's there on the right leg of this team, right? So not every brand who spends, and there's a huge amount that's been spent in that area, can make that mark. So there are very few brands who will take up that that position and also market it really well. You have the athletes, you will put your brain behind. Most of the brands, what they do is it's like an ego kick. We were there in one of the brands. They have to go and tell people, listen, we were there. Not many people can actually recognize the brand logo on one of the jerseys. So which is why you'll find very few of them who's actually going to connect with the consumer. You will find even after IPL or ISL or Kabaddi League or any of these league gets over, people will remember those. That many of the brands, what they've done is that they started giving free products to people who are coming to the stadium, so that they can come back, they can go back. And of course, I'm not talking about the major ones, not the mobile phones and all, but the smaller ones. Your pain relief and all these things. So then that was a way of connecting, because most of the people used to go back, marathons, they'll go back and they'll come back and then just say, okay, probably this brand is much better for me. So that is the way brand connected in sports, so to say, which is, we've seen a lot of trends. Earlier it was only spending once and then forgetting about it, because people thought that, okay, if somebody will come to the stadium, they'll see my brand and that's it. That's how the sale is going to happen. But now what they've realized, it doesn't happen like that, because there are 10,000 brands there. Who will remember all of them? So you need to do much extra work to have people, stick with you. So, that is
so
how.
Just pure association is not going to work. That's what you're saying. Just associating. Yes. Yeah, all right. Yes. And the second point that you make is that there has to be, it has to be a long-term thing. You can't just have a.
It has to be a long-term. Yes, definitely.
Fair. I go over to Mangalore. I go over to Mr. Girish Rao now. Girish, your take on what should a brand do to stay in sync with the target group, with the environment and society at large?
Yeah, thanks, Giraj. I will stay away from the the durable and the B2C space, because I think we have significant number of experts in this field here. But I think I would like to take what Rishi has said for on the same on the point of the fact that the consumer and the buyer are two different things. Let me just stay with what is the commodity space. And if you go back to, let's say, 10-15 years ago, a commodity was a commodity. If you went around buying steel or aluminum or anything of that kind, you really never give a damn where it came from or what brand you are buying. But that has seen an extremely and a significant change in the last 15 years, because the consumer himself is today in reality becoming conscious of, even when he goes out to purchase things like steel, which goes into the construction of his home or his roof or any of those kind of things. Historically, the pioneers in this business have been the Tatas, who have learned the art of building brands even in the commodity space over the last 20 to 30 years. But today it has become a hygiene factor. Today, the consumer, you would typically believe that if you actually went around and if you're building a home or an office, and then you would just tell the contractor, go and buy XYZ, whatever it is, and you just bother about the price. It is not so today. We may not have reached the stage where consumers say, how much of carbon credit, like Rishi says in the case of the energy space or whatever it is there. But then people are concerned, about what goes into it and how much of, recycling and so many other things. And then today, if you notice, the presence of the marketing spends of, for all the people in the agencies, the market business, the companies like the JSWs of this world and the ArcelorMittals and the Tatas are spending in this space is significant. Because today, even a commodity product today, like even cement, for example, is reaching a stage where the consumer cares. And I think, being large polluters, being large, adding to the overall environmental issues, people are today becoming choice and conscious about the choices that they make. So, it's interesting that today things that we could never think of, doing any kind of marketing or where the consumer would not really bother, today is becoming an important and essential commodity even in this space today area. Something that we probably, when you put a category, Giraj, maybe you should look at the categories of a commodity where historically marketing was never there and consumer would really consider a brand when he goes in for a purchase.
Correct. And that's a valuable input. I think Sanjeev will have to go back and look at that input. That's a sensitive input. Yes.
If I can take just 5 seconds, Mr. Giraj, one second. I think he made a very good point. I just wanted to add an example which I think we'll all relate to. Pidilite is a great example of that, right? Correct. They actually connect with the consumer and the buyer is very different. Nobody really buys Fevicol for their house. Very rarely do we. But I think they connect with the consumer very well, and that's why they've been perhaps one of the greatest brands. One of the leading brands India has had consistently. But anyway, back to you. Sorry.
No, a very apt example. All right, I now go over to Sridhar. Sridhar, your thoughts.
Yeah, so I was hearing out everybody, Mr. Rao as well as Vandana and others. I've been speaking about a few forums on this. I think we've been on going back, industry age, technology age. In my view, today, we are rightly in the age of where customer centricity matters a lot. In my view, brands who put customer right in the middle and offer a fantastic experience for the customer is what will grow. Added to this, I'll add a couple of things which have changed, a few things which have changed over the last few years. Something which has changed is today, consumers' outlook is, end customers' outlook is, know me, personalize it to me. I'm willing to share enough information about myself, but he is demanding a highly personalized experience, connecting the dots to what Vandana was talking about, right? A brand, how much does the individual exactly connect to it? When you're personifying a Dhoni or somebody, right? That matters quite a lot. So a brand which puts customers right in the middle and imagines a fantastic experience around him, how much does the brand know about the end consumer? Today we are linking data with customers in the sense that today, do I know every personalized parameter? Mr. Sridhar is X, he works in a software company, but he's also bakes for his family, and he has a child who goes for a cricket coaching. He has a daughter who learns Carnatic music. He has a wife who spends in banking industry. Look at the number of personalization parameters that come into picture for a family like this, right? A brand which understands absolutely the form of a customer centricity is one thing that I wanted to talk about. Going back to what Mr. Rao said, I want to give an example of how brands stay in sync. He spoke about an aluminum company. Today, one of the world's largest producer of aluminum companies pivoting towards saying that, can I start making windows for homes and personalize these windows in terms of the color, size, rigidity, all of it. This company used to make only aluminum ingots. Now for them to pivot towards selling windows online, what does it take? So I want to add a couple of more components. Second one is innovation and the agility with which brand is able to pivot towards changing times. The organizations which have had traditionally very strong workforce, very strong innovation in the area of manufacturing today, are they able to pivot quickly towards addressing this end consumer whose needs have grown significantly, right? So if I put it in a simple terms, earlier we were addressing a small baby who had very less needs, but today a consumer is like a teenager. His needs are varied, his channels are varied. For example, the average amount of time today's end consumer spends on a screen is about 7 seconds. If you're not able to offer a superior experience in 7 seconds, he or she is just going to move to another thing. I myself personally tested Flipkart versus Amazon, who gives you the best experience. In 7 seconds, you ought to flip to another one, right? So it's about how much you know, how much you personalize, how much you service the customer at that small window of operation, how that whole thing converges in front of the customer. I think this is what thoughts that I wanted to share. A last one about sustainability, adding to Rishi, right? This millennium today, millennial or Gen Y, Gen Zs, right? When they hold a chocolate, they want to know where is that cocoa sourced from, right? Where is exactly the nuts sourced from? So sustainability is one important aspect. Second one is traceability. They want to trace every particular product that is being sourced and how the product is made. So sustainability and traceability are two things which the next generation is going to be absolutely conscious about. So those were some thoughts from my end.
Wonderful, Shiva. I think very well put. And I quite like the 7-second window thing that you spoke about. You know, the key would be to sort of figure out that what can a brand do in those 7 seconds to sort of get the audience to be in sync. Of course, one is going back, like you mentioned, sustainability and traceability, and we can keep looking at such factors. I go over to Sandeep Tiwari now. Sandeep, over to you. Your thoughts.
Well, thanks. I think there are two big challenges which the brands are facing today. And the first one is to remain relevant. And the second one is when the brand loyalty is disappearing as a concept, how to remain relevant becomes even more crucial. The other big thing which is happening is earlier the brand was measured in terms of the marketing budget and was generally referred as a voice of a brand. Now that concept of VOB has moved to VOC, voice of a customer, where now customer has suddenly, with a social handle coming in play, has a voice of his own. He's speaking about a brand now. That is what really makes a brand. It's no longer what brand speaks about itself. It's what customers of that brand speaking about the brand, which is what the concept of VOC is making the brand. Now, this is a huge challenge because till now, it had never happened where consumer had a voice which is of this magnitude, this scale, and which was much bigger, much more believable than what a brand used to speak about himself or herself. I think this for navigation is perhaps the biggest of the challenge, which every organization has to perhaps make to remain relevant and build whatever loyalty we may say it is supposed to build over it.
Right. Is that all, Sandeep? There's something you want to add?
Sure.
Dhananjay, you wanted to say something to what Sandeep was saying?
Yes. I was going through this biography of Steve Jobs written by Walter Isaacson. And here Steve Jobs is a customer, a typical customer, looking for things for his new house in Palo Alto. So why I'm sharing this anecdote is it will give you in a nutshell how a customer looks at a brand for the solution that it provides from the point of view of effectiveness, efficacy of the product to its commitment towards being a green brand or green product in terms of manufacturing facility, in terms of a customer's usage. And Steve Jobs was a very difficult customer as it comes out from this anecdote. He took full 1 month. He would go out every evening to various stores to buy a simple washing machine for his home, which he was setting up. And after much deliberation and research, he ended up buying a Miele machine. So people said, why Miele? It takes more time to wash your clothes, twice as much as the next best. So his musings there in that particular anecdotes are, it was about, one, it was a green product. The organization was very conscious about its carbon footprint. Two, the product in itself was designed in a very green manner. So what does it take to run your washing machine? It is the detergent. Here, it consumed 50% less detergent than any other washing machine available in the market. Electricity, it was A++ on the European energy efficiency norms. That is 40% better than the best prescribed by EEU. Then if you take water, just 40 liters of water to wash 7 kgs of your clothes, of your laundry. Then it was built to last for 20 years. So then, the only downside which he could see was that it takes a little longer to wash your clothes. While your clothes remain good, they don't lose their newness for a very long time, they remain soft and they're good to use. So that is how he ended up buying a machine. And also the fact that 90% of the machine was recyclable due to high metal content which was used to wash that machine. So as per Steve Jobs, he said, this is a very well designed machine. When you say design, it is not only good to look at, but the way the function, the consumption, the recyclability has been thought through for this. So that is one extreme example from 10 years ago. But then, that is how customers have started looking at brands now. And while we keep on thinking we are giving the best price, we are giving the best looks, doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, so Dhananjay, I think what you said is resonates exactly with what Rishi said. You got to look at sustainability. You got to look at the backside, what's happened in manufacturing the product, and how good the product is. And I think you've gone a step forward with the example, because he also looks at recyclability, which is taking it to the next level also. So that, I think, is emerging as one very critical factor to determine whether a brand is sync or not, at least with the environment and obviously with the end user. All right, we go over to Vivek. Vivek, quick half a minute, 30 seconds, your thoughts. What should a brand do to stay in sync? So we've got a few points. So we got sustainability as a point. We got traceability as a point. We also got this input that brand has only 7 minutes to sort of build that connect and get out. And also I think that Sridhar made a very interesting comment. Sridhar, I'm going to tweet that after this session, is the consumer is like a teenager. I think that is a very interesting way of putting it. Vivek, your take beyond these points. You got to unmute, Vivek.
I would like to add to what the panelists are saying very quickly. So, what people are looking at is the environment. What are the countries or companies doing with their environment? Are their beaches clean? Should we go there? I mean, when I was 2021 and my parents said, "Chalo, let's go," we never even thought of this. What is happening to the beaches? Are they letting trash on the beaches? Is that all the stuff going into the sea and creating havoc with the wildlife in the sea, the marine life, where the marine life is swallowing tins or bottles and dying in the process? The kids are talking about that. They are the consumers. People are talking of human rights. Should we buy a product from this country? Are they using child labor? Are they racist? People are looking at animal rights. Should we buy products from this country because they're using monkeys for testing? So animal rights, human rights, environment, these are the key things a brand has to think about, because we never thought about that 30, 40 years back, but things have changed and changed drastically. So which means a brand has to be nimble, essentially. Because across generations, the aspirations will change, the parameters will change, the goalposts are shifting. That's what I'd like to add. Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. LK, over to you. LK, you've heard a lot of people some of them, of course, responded, but some of those ideas are new. So LK, your response to it.
Okay. I know all these are relevant points, definitely. What I would like to actually keep at the core of our discussion, I think Sridhar mentioned this, is the consumer aspect. Okay. At the end of the day, we are talking about marketing and more or less about marketing, and marketing encompasses a lot of things. What I want to actually talk about is what is behind the hood of a company or a brand. So many a time, brand is doing work that the consumer does not naturally recognize, saying, that's so great. But it's just such great experience that the consumer will automatically gravitate towards that brand or even start recommending it to others. This all comes from, I think, I would like to introduce the concept of, into this discussion, the concept of sense making. How does a brand make sense? Sense making is about really looking at where you are, looking at the environment around you, and then making sense of it, and then doing something with it. So as individuals, we do that all the time. Whether we are at home or whether we are at workplace or social situations, we are making sense of the things around us, and then we act accordingly. Or maybe even we change our behavior accordingly. But a lot of brands and people, when they're looking after brands and business, that sense making kind of gets a bit kind of fuzzy. A brand which has great sense making basically is keeping its eyes and ears open to figure out what is the trends that defining that the current milieu, and where is this going. So I'm able to actually, as a brand, predict that, this is what I see is happening around me. I have got a good mechanism to listen to consumers and trade, perhaps, and I'm going to predict that this is what's going to happen in the next 5 years. And then I make sure that I'm prepared for it. The sense making aspect of a brand is a very internal to the company kind of but a lot of companies don't do it in a structured manner. Some companies do. A lot of these new startups are doing that, but a lot of old companies are not doing that. So the most core aspect for me is actually, is the brand able to look around it, get the feedback from the market, or just see things and then able to make the connection and predict the future, and then change its own behavior. Or new companies do it all the time. When we say this startup has solved that problem, something like Dunzo came up, and I think it started from Bangalore, right? It was a problem which has always been there. But one guy did a sense making and figured out this is where the market will be headed more and more, right? And Dunzo comes up with a solution to it, and it's something that people swear by now. The other aspect of this is actually what does a brand do when the customer decides to talk to them, whether it is suggestions, whether it is complaints, and so on. So a lot of the agility and the sensitivity that a brand has got to do with how are they responding to consumers who want to talk to them. A lot of companies and brands can look at it as an irritant. A lot of companies and brands look at it as an opportunity. Okay, but the important thing is that if a consumer is talking to you, a brand should realize that, hey, that means that consumer cares, right? He's not just giving me up and going off somewhere. He's talking to me. How do you take feedback from consumers, and what do you do with it? So when we look around us, and for BRISYL, when we are looking at various brands and what they're doing inside the company, under the hood, these are the things that we should perhaps watch out for, to say that this company is making an effort to stay in sync with what's happening around it. And therefore, it's changing its own behavior, it's predicting the future, maybe even inventing new things based on how it's predicting the future. So it goes far beyond just a product and advertising or promotions or anything. For me, it is, how is this systemically embedded inside the company, structurally there? Okay, if a company or a brand has that, I think it is geared to be in sync. That's what I need to say.
Wonderful. I think LK, just to sort of supplement what you have said, this has come out in the survey also that we carried out. Where we got entries from a whole lot of people, from the jury and from the council, from you as well. So we put all that under responsive or responsiveness, where we talked about is there an evidence that the brand has a robust listening mechanism? Is there evidence of the brand standing up and delivering on customer promise? Is it responding to customer changing needs? And is it also taking care of customers' implicit needs? So that's sort of the kind of response, and we put that under responsiveness. And then we also looked at, so a lot of inputs were clubbed under connection, where we talked about, where we got responses like, the brand understands the aspiration of the target audience. And another issue that came up was that, or another point that came up was that does a brand, is it making enough effort to emotionally connect with the consumer? And is that connect long term? Is that being nurtured very well? And while you have that core emotional connect, are you also simultaneously responding to change? So maybe we can term that as agility. But I quite like the expression that you used, that what's behind the hood. I think if we could sort of maybe use that, elaborate that a little for our back-end research team, I think that would be wonderful. And of course, there is the third element that came up was aligned. Is the brand aligned? Does it co-opt the customer to build a brand story? That's something very close to what Sridhar said, when he talked about the voice of the consumer. Then is it present across platforms and is actively engaging with the customer? Does it display sensitivity and take stance on issues that are of concern to society at large, factors diversity? And also, interestingly, a lot of people felt that are the C-level officers active and display similar attributes to that of the brand? So it's gone up to that level. And then, of course, was purpose, which is, how does it harmonize with society? What are the values that are dear to the consumer? Are they becoming a part of the brand DNA? Are they actually doing something to uplift the section of the society which Rishi talked about? Also, do they promote? Does the brand promote art, culture, education without actually, crass commercialization of the entire thing? I think what the point that Bandana made, that even sports is the brand scene. It's not just exploiting the association with a sport or with a sports person. Is it actually promoting the cause of the game or whatever? And is it concerned about the environment? That also came under purpose and makes a conscious effort to improve it. So that's roughly what we've got in terms of our responses. And I think a lot of what people have said today are resonating, except that we got some very tight phrases from all of you, which I'm sure we'll go back.
So there's just one thing. I make a little distinction between responsiveness and sense making.
And sense making, absolutely.
See, responsiveness is more of a stimulus response thing.
Correct. And
sense making is a more meta level thing, right? And it could show itself in, well, logistics.
Yeah.
It could show itself in, loan finance. It could show up in so many ways.
Correct.
Which is about, reading what is happening around us and then coming up with something which is an entire game changer, perhaps. So maybe when we look at brands for this award as well, we should be watching out for those who have displayed great sense making.
Sense making, correct.
Yeah?
I think that's a very
and responsiveness is, again, for me, it's a response to stimuli.
Yeah.
Right. Which is important, no doubt.
No, I think you make a valid point there. And
if I may just add, just one other point that, these are just fabulous points, but just think of it, brands react very well when times are good and fair weather, right? What about when you come through? So real character of a brand comes out when they go through adversity, and every brand in its lifetime goes through adversity, right? I think a very topical thing is, I don't know how many of you have seen this Zomato issue that's happened in Bangalore about the delivery person and, the consumer having made an allegation that the delivery person actually assaulted her. And, Dipinder came out with a very interesting open letter where he wrote, as a brand, and he said, look, we are handling it with the authorities, but also, taking no sides and actually fulfilling on both sides, the consumer as well as the delivery partner, and not dropping any one of them. That, to be honest, I think the millennials, as well as the younger generation responds far more to that than to things, the old traditional stuff of, discounts and promotion and distribution and so on and so forth. Because people, I think as society evolves, people want to see fairness. They want to see the underdog being, no class consciousness and so on and so forth. So in adversity, the brand that handles adversity well is really the brand that stands out when all things being equal, really.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, if I may add something.
Yeah.
One of the things, while a lot of us tend to focus on the, the urban, the tier 2 and things, reaching across to the tier 3 and the rural market is a very critical thing, in these times today. And if I may say, when you get involved, if your brand is capable of getting involved in a larger cause, which is the nation is going. I mean, a case in point, I would say, is how Tata was able to ride on the Swachh Bharat thing, which came about by actually moving from the standard commodity product into actually fabricating, pre-toilets for which could reach the rural area. So you actually touched the sensitive point in the rural. And just by converting a commodity into a product which is actually reaching out to the smallest and the last mile, where really and you become a part of the larger Swachh Bharat movement, actually is a brilliant opportunity. See, people who are able to take these kind of opportunities and reach out and go far beyond just saying, are really the smart guys in the business.
Fair. No, that's a valid point. Jose, before I come to you, I'll go to Johan. I'm very tempted to go to Johan because Johan, we had one MAD session where Johan was the one who actually changed the entire narrative and brought in the issue of consumer activism. And I think a lot of what Rishi mentioned, even the Zomato example and what we've been discussing covers that. So Johan, your take on this?
Sure. I think that I'm not going to speak about consumer activism at all because I think it's been covered very adequately, and I'll be in some ways, beating a point that I think we're all very well versed with. But I'm just very motivated by what LK said. I'm thinking about a company called Robinhood, which had the potential. It's probably the most important moment of their history. They're literally called Robinhood, and this is their moment where retail investors are, challenging, Wall Street, and they had one job, which was to communicate well to their target audience. And the biggest mistake they made was to use corporate speak in addressing their customers at the time. Ruined immediately. I mean, I think that they will continue to be big, but I think they lost their biggest opportunity so far. And where that comes to is, interestingly, deeply understanding our audience is going to be very, very important. And the second part there is innovating sometimes is risky because it means knowing what's going to come, going to what LK said, to the point where you're willing to even sacrifice some part of your existing business for what is about to come in the future. I had a music producer tell me this the other day that Drake, one of the most successful songwriters of all time, he does extensive research on what 13-year-olds are up to these days. And he starts to understand their trends, and then it's one of the reasons why he has a hit song. And this can be applied even in how we understand the audience, because it is risky business to be looking ahead. Because we're often so focused on what is there right now. And I think that innovating with a very deep insight of what's about to come. And that is extremely risky business. So I was just thinking about those 2 points, and I was resonating with what LK said. When it comes to consumer activism, I think we all know where we are headed. We all know what that'll look like. And the sooner we can prepare for that, the better, So I'm not gonna, but that's been said very well, so I'm not gonna go there.
Jose, you wanted to say something?
Sure. So, a lot has been said, and Giraj sir, you kind of summarized all of that, right? I would steal the word under the hood, that term, to kind of build on to what I have to share. I don't know I'm allowed to share my screen or not, but I think no, I don't have access to share my screen. But what I wanted to say was, overall communication, like Johan just mentioned, right? So I would kind of, sorry for the French here, but the brand should grow some balls, right? Because in terms of communication, right, empathy is absolutely missing today. Zero empathy, right? If you look at Twitter of any brand today, Twitter is a rant channel, right? What you get as a response is, please DM your mobile number, your coordinates, I'll come back to you. And that copy paste has been happening for the last 20 years, God damn it, right? So one key parameter for us should be, under the hood should be who is the CMO, right? Who is the brand custodian, right? And what is the public stated purpose of the brand? And Giraj sir, as you said, does that align with their actual actions, right? Are they, I call it as 3 E's, right? Is there empathy? Are they educating the customer? Are they empowering the customer, right? That's extremely critical. The Zomato example, that Rishi gave, or, my own example, right? The report said that Dabur honey is the worst thing that you could consume, right? And I have been consuming it for the last 5 years religiously every day morning, 2 glasses of, warm water and Dabur honey in it, right? I, all of a sudden stopped and moved to Marico, moved to Saffola, right? And, my wife is saying, Jose, ye jama hua rehta hamesha, Dabur jama hua nahi rehta tha, kya kare isko, kisse puche, right? So look at that. That is empathy. That's absolutely missing. And I'm asking Marico, hey, it is 30 degrees now in Delhi, but the honey is all frozen still. What's happening, right? Nobody is responding, right? And we are talking about conscious consumption here, but consumers are not pushing back, right? Toyota Fortuner, last I checked, 6 months of waiting still, it's a guzzler, right? I don't know, Rishi, you drive a Prius, I don't know. I hope so you do, right? But, as consumers, we are not pushing back. We are talking about conscious consumption here, but, are we really, consuming consciously? The answer is no. Are you using a toothbrush with a wooden handle in it or a Gillette with a wooden handle in it? The answer is no. We still throw it away, right? So I think, somewhere we should, look at that, on to look at brands of how are they communicating? Is it aligned with the, stated publicly, available brand purpose? Are their actions aligned with it? And, ages ago, there used to be 3 P's in the, somebody said we should introduce 3 P's in the balance sheet, right? People and planet and profit, right? So are people looking at things like that, right? I think that is something that we should look at. My thoughts.
Yeah, cool, Jose. I think valuable input. I go over to Nari. Nari, you must have been restless, wanting to say a lot. So sorry, I had to come to you so late. Over to you, Nari. You'll have to.
Thanks, thank you. Yeah. Apt attention. To me, the word sync. To start with, if a brand is in sync, it grows, it builds market share, it makes money. So the question of sync, by definition, for me, if something happens and to jolt the brand, so to speak, and is it in line with in sync with the newer demands, newer constraints, newer contexts that's placed upon them? That's number one. Number two, this newer demand is something which are very highly abstract and very fundamental. Changes in aspirations, changes in fundamentally the whole world has changed, where you have new opportunities, you have new constraints, whether it's because of China is hated and I'll not buy from China kind of things. So these are all very fundamental, not to do with an individual consumer, but the larger zeitgeist and the way that might change at a very high level of abstraction. So to me, therefore, there has to be a new thing. And two, there are fundamental changes. And three, the response is not just a response. It's in line with what LK said, sense making or a new avatar, if you will, which is much more in sync with the world as it is now than what it was earlier. So when you look at it from that standpoint, you're going to have some 2,000 dimensions and 20,000 aspects to really look at. So maybe we should address A, priorities. B, it might not be the same for different categories and different brands. So we probably could have a varying set of rules. What hit an FMCG is different from what hit, let's say, apparel because of a China problem. Yeah. So while COVID might have hit different categories, different services are different. Would you say an LIC, which has survived and thrived despite big competition coming up over the years, as being in sync? You guys, will you buy an LIC insurance as distinct from some modern brand? So, it's not just being in response to the change of growth. So we need that indefinable something, and I would reward that indefinable something as a key element of the being in sync specification. Thank you.
Thank you, Nari. As always, you come up with something which is deep. Akshay, you've been quiet. Akshay, your take.
Well, actually, being one of the last members of the forum, you actually tick off. Wait. There is
Rahul, there is Chitra, there is Rahul, and Akshay, and there is also Rajiv, and also the entire team behind BRISYL. So you can't say that.
No, I'm saying one. I said one of the. So it's like every time somebody else is taking on the mic and saying something, and it's like, oh, I was thinking about this. This has been covered. Now I have to think of something new.
Yeah.
Jokes aside, I think of what all I have heard in the last half an hour, 40 minutes. I think life 20 years back was much more peaceful. When in 2003, 2004, when I bought my first washing machine, I never bothered about how many liters of water, how much electricity, whether it was all we needed was whether it is a 3-star or a 5-star, and we didn't even go deep into that. कि ये actually है या नहीं है. I think the way the world has changed, the digital transformation that has happened in the last 5 years or 6 years, there has been a lot of information overload. And I think this information overload has killed or has put so much pressure on brands that they have to be in sync of of all the information. Now the brand manager or the marketer has to also bother about what somebody is ranting on Twitter about the brand, whether somebody is giving a positive review on the brand or not, because any negative review on any lower rating will hit the brand, and then they have to have an extensive PR or a marketing or a digital strategy in place, or they have to think it much in advance कि अगर कोई ऐसा कुछ बोलेगा, then this is how we'll react. So this is there are a lot of things that have now come on pressure, and I think this information overload is changing the game completely. Now if you look at it, the other thing everybody spoke about the consumer side of the business, that but the brands also have to be in sync with the competition. I mean, if you really look at it, I'm a big fan of the platform business. If you look at it, look at Airbnb, how they completely changed the game for hotel industry. I mean, how many hotels were in sync with the times, thinking that a platform like an Airbnb will evolve and it will take the carpet under their feet. Look at Zomato. How many restaurants did you know in your neighborhood actually existed? Now you know, and you're actually maybe ordering food from them and enjoying the local flavors of the food. So how that platform has completely changed the business. How many, so to say, the businesses were in sync with times? They were not. So as we in this entire forum, when we think that it is not only the consumer who is impacting the entire business. I mean, the brands need not to be in sync with the consumers only. They also need to be in sync with the information overload that is that can just shake up the business any point in time, and also the competition where there is an asymmetric player who has come up. Look at an Uber. How many taxi stands per se, Patpadaganj taxi stand or a Noida taxi stand were actually thinking that there will be an Uber who will come, and those charpoys will the drivers will keep sleeping on the charpoys. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the point I think was not covered, so I thought
Fair. And I think before we go on further, I'll quickly go over to Rahul, who's been very quiet. And Girish had mentioned about tier 2, tier 3. Girish, Rahul handles a radio channel which is predominantly in tier 2 and tier 3 towns. Rahul, your take on brands in sync.
So I can relate a lot of the words you guys are mentioning. Since as a media vehicle, we are seeing brand advertising on our vehicle. We are doing a lot of ground event activations, digital connect kind of thing. So I was, as the Sandeep was mentioning about the voice of consumer rather than the voice of brand. I can relate immediately one recent example what we are executing right now with one of the tractor brand. The challenge of that tractor brand, nobody in village, actual consumer, the kisan, he doesn't understand what the branding is, which brand is doing good, but they understand very well the consumer endorsement. So they came to us ki we want to do some rural activation kind of thing where we don't want to publicly come out that we are doing this activity, but certainly we want to integrate our brand used by the some farmer in that village. So that way they want to get the endorsement from the consumer instead of brand. And the activity what we did is basically a rural connect and Kisan Sammelan kind of thing, where we are very subtly we are integrating that brand ambassador, the brand tractor owner as a brand ambassador, and he is narrating his success story. So I'm quickly can able to relate what Sandeep mentioning. Instead of voice of brand, voice of consumer does wonders.
Super. Now let me go to a consumer. Rajiv, who's been very patiently listening to all of us, and he's been brought into the console because he brings in that experience. So how does a 4G think, and how does a scientific officer think, and how does a bureaucrat think? Rajiv, you can wear any of those hats or wear all the three of them, and very quickly tell us what do you think or what you heard in this discussion in terms of brands in sync.
So first of all, thanks, Giraj, for, once again, to bring me to this forum where I had to, listen to something very, very interesting during last 1 hour plus actually, and that has been an enriching experience. To come back to what I feel about the whole thing, as a consumer or a Fauji or a bureaucrat, what so. I think I will connect it this way, that the canvas is too large, right? When we are talking about brands, actually, whether it is the scope of the brand in terms of price, in terms of the A's, in terms of the type of product, the context in which the product is being sold, or it is the benefit it delivers, in terms of the usefulness, right? The functional value, what I meant to say, durability, what we generally, an Indian customer is going to look at. And even the emotional benefits, it can whether trigger, stimulate, and not only stimulate, it can sustain those, So having said that, whether it is the category of brands, whether you want to call them cult brands, iconic brands, authority brands, what all, but within these categories, if you look at, seemingly it seems, that there's a common thread with respect to how the brand is going to survive, how the brand is going to sustain itself, not only sustain, how it is going to linearly or exponentially grow, and even in terms of evolve, in the market, actually, because evolution per se, what my understanding is that brands do evolve, but then at a very limited pace, at a very small pace, actually. So the scope is very limited. But what essentially, what I was trying to say, that though there is a common thread, but there is nothing, sacrosanct. There is no single route map to brand survival or its sustainability or linear progression for that matter. So I think each category has its own territory, where we have to think from that point of view. But there is something common which I wanted to relate with science part of it, where I had this R&D organization, and what we are looking at, presently in the country for last almost 5 years plus, particularly from the time I joined this organization, that we are not interested anymore in the incremental kind of research which is happening in the country, right? We are more concerned about the disruptive type of research, which can bring innovation, which can bring technology revolution, etc., etc. Now, how suddenly this change has happened, in the R&D, bureaucrat setups, how we are looking at it. Because see, from a time, I have seen in last 5 years itself, where we were actually funding at the rate of almost 25 to 35%. That means if 100 proposals comes to my lab, right, finally 25 or 35 gets through. We have come to a stage where we have reduced it to consciously and at both subconscious level, we have brought it to about 12 to 15%, right? And across the world, when you look at the Western world, this has come to as much as about 5 to 8%. They are only interested in high risk, high reward kind of R&D, which is going to happen. And that is what they're targeting, and that is what we are targeting. So how I'm relating this part of R&D, that disruptive part of it, so if brand has to really remain relevant, to the masses, so one is the functional value or the emotional value, it has to actually continue evolving, to remain in terms of technology per se, in terms of even functional value. I mean, it's a total game actually from that.
No, very well put, Rajiv. Very well put.
Yeah,
Lloyd. Lloyd, before I come to you, Chitra, are you still there, Chitra? I just wanted to check on Chitra because she's been quiet, and I don't know if she's still there or not.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
Chitra?
I'm here. Yeah, hi, Giraj. Sorry, I had to multitask a bit. So yeah, but I've been listening.
Chitra, I'll come back to you in 1 minute. Stay on. Lloyd want to make a point, and I'll come back to you to conclude the entire discussion. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, Lloyd.
Yeah, I think just one point. I think great discussion. I just wanted to say that I think Akshay made a great point that while we obviously are looking at some of the key areas, one is agility, as LK said. How responsive or how sensitive a brand is, and also given the larger top of ESG and relevance of a lot of financiers, a lot of companies a lot of investors are putting money behind companies that are focused on this whole environment, social and governance aspect. I think that's well taken. I think the point Akshay made about disruption and companies that reinvent their categories virtually, right, by disruptive business models, whether it's an Airbnb or Uber or whatever. I think that's one critical aspect, because these are businesses that literally are reinventing the whole space they exist in. And I think we need to keep that as one of the critical measures of a brand's ability to sync with current day consumers. The ability to reinvent their business model, but more importantly, disrupt the entire category, because that's what is right now emerging as one of the very, very critical aspects to success, right? So whether it's a Tesla, and if you look at some of the big game changers of the last 2 decades, right, the Googles in the world, they all in a sense have disrupted, the entire category, or disrupted the way people look at things in a very traditional manner. And I think that's one of the points that we have to keep relevant during this entire judging process.
I think that's a valid point, and we'll take that on. Thank you. Thanks, Lloyd, for pointing that out. And thank you, Akshay, for bringing it up. Okay, before we conclude and I go to Chitra for conclusion, I think it's been a fantastic discussion, lovely points. Just one thing, and I would want to sort of take the benefit of Sandeep and Vandana having joined us for the first time. So this question is to you. A very short answer is what I need. So we were, we were trying to get somebody from the social sector onto the M.A.D.D council. And that lady, she asked me that, and so I shared with her what the distance that we've traveled and the inputs that have come in. And Sandeep, I think thank you for the mails that you write to Rupali and to me. We find them very exciting, and there's a lot that's coming in those mails. One point that this lady raised is that what about the employee? Should a brand not be in sync with its employee, and will that not reflect in whether the brand is relevant or in sync with today's time or not? So quick answer from you and Vandana on this, and then we go on to Chitra for conclusion. Yeah, Sandeep.
Yeah, I think it's a very important one, because I would perhaps give my experience at Samsung on this in terms of answering it. Samsung and Apple perhaps are 2 brands which are rocking, doing extremely well, perhaps fighting for the key battle of winning the hearts. I think from Indian perspective, Samsung has had to crack 3 elements to make a difference. The first one was from an Indian demographic perspective, connect with the youth, which is a very obvious thing for a category of mobile phones. The second one was the entire social structure of India, of how it is structured. It was very important that it should remain aspirational to fight the likes of the Chinese brands. And the third one was to become inclusive, which is absolutely important for a market like India, which is divided into so many stratas. To be able to connect to someone who's in a lower strata as much as it aspires to connect with the top strata. Now, these 3 things where Samsung really worked upon was starting with the internal team itself, coming to your point, creating a team of voice of customer internally, making that voice of customer concept go across the employee to make them understand, and then to ensure that not only the employee understand, they build that empathy, which we are talking in our forum for quite some time, to build that empathy towards the customer. Now, this perspective of orienting the employees and then perhaps taking care of them also, because they were themselves customers. Because if they don't speak outside in favor of the brand will never have a favorable disposition in the customer person. So this particular example I wanted to bring on table, because this was like the acid test for Samsung to be able to connect, to navigate, and the navigation was a key word which was used in the company to really be able to navigate inside out into the market and make a difference in the marketplace. So this I felt I should be able to, and I must share with the people here. And if it can bring in some relevance to our discussion, perhaps.
No, sure it does. Thank you. Thanks, Sandeep. Vandana, quick one. Employee, should that be taken into consideration or not?
In fact, I totally agree with Sandeep when he says employee at the end of the day are also customers. It's not that they are not. To giving, first of all, understanding what they want to do is very, very important, because especially in my, in sports, we have all the youth working with us, and they all come up with genius ideas, right? We've worked with brands, we've told them to do this and that. So they've really, with social media coming up, so the youth really work better with social media. Small things, like how we were discussing about sustainability and in looking after environment. And I'll give you a small example. JSW basically, told the team of JSW also has a football team with them, which is called Bengaluru FC. They told the team what we should do on Earth Day or Women's Day. So what the kids came up with, let's change the jersey of entire team. Let's give them a green jersey on an Earth Day. Let's give them a pink jersey with their mother's name behind, because everybody is known by their father's surname. give them that kind. So those ideas, how to attract youth to your company is very, very important, which comes from your employees who are working for you. They understand your ethics and they understand what the customer wants.
Super, thanks. Sridhar, your take on the employee bit? Sridhar?
Yeah. Yes, Kirat, sorry. Some reason my audio stopped working on my laptop, so I'm just connecting on the phone. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. So what we
yes.
So I hope you heard what Sandeep and Vandana said. The question that I had posed was that isn't it important for a brand to be in sync with the employee as well? We've talked a lot about consumer environment and stuff like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have few anecdotes to share on that. Connecting to what Akshay said as well as various others said, right? Experience is something what goes inward as well as outwards. Experience is something how you treat your employees. Your employees will also treat your consumers. This I've seen multiple organizations doing it effectively very well. Connecting to what Jose Leon said, it's about empathy. If the organization is showing empathy towards its employees, right, we will automatically show empathy towards our consumers. If we are putting employees above our policies, our employee experience above most of it, right? That means to say that we will also treat our consumers equally well. So employee experience, we live it as taking shape of consumer. If you're able to take shape of what brand you are internally, like I want to give an example of Flipkart big $1 billion sale, right? When it's interesting to see what happens inside under the hood story of thousands of engineers working together 24/7 for those 4 to 5 days in offering superior employee experience. I want to talk about superior consumer experience, how the employees get treated, how they cheer each other, how they shoulder each other well at those times, working for those 24 hours, 24/7 in serving every order that comes their way. This is a fantastic Indian e-commerce story, how an employee experience transforms into a customer experience. Right, so I would absolutely resonate with that.
Wonderful. Yes, Chitra, over to you for conclusion. Normally we get Sanjeev to sort of conclude, but I think we've had a full house today. So Sanjeev, Ridhima, Shushita, and Rupali will keep quiet. Let Chitra do the sum up. And before I hand it over to Chitra, thank you everyone. A very engaging session, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken out and the kind of inputs that we've got. Over to you, Chitra.
Hi, everyone. I think this was one of the best sessions in terms of, the crispness of everyone's thoughts. And I think the BRISYL vision is coming together very beautifully in the sense that, it's quite exciting to see how people have interpreted how brands are in sync. So, I think a key thing that has emerged is, of course, customer centricity. I think that resonated across all the speakers. It various forms, whether the TG, whether like Sridhar said, looking at data, personalizing. Somebody else talked about, being in sync with times. I think Akshay also said that it should not be just customer alone, but also the whole. I think you meant the ecosystem, right?
The domain, the category, the domain, yeah.
The domain. And here I must also add, because, if you look at brands that actually failed, that is a bit instructive. Why did Nokia fail, such an iconic brand? Because it didn't keep up with the times. And why did so I think when we do this, it's also good to look at, say, iconic brands like Kodak or Nokia, which failed. So what were the factors? It's not that they didn't listen to customers, but maybe they didn't take the trends that were happening seriously enough. I think the hotel industry is another case in point, which didn't. They've been bad mouthing players like Oyo and others, and saying, "Oh, things would change the market." So you need to be not only in sync with the customer who's changing, also be a little ahead. I think the disruptive element was also pointed out by several people here. I think as Lloyd also mentioned and others mentioned, that great brands also find I think LK mentioned Dunzo, which was very interesting. I mean, Dunzo and other who spotted a niche which big brands have not spotted. So clearly, brands also need to look at need gaps. I mean, you have to be not just understand consumers, but be ahead of consumers to some extent. You kind of anticipate what the need will be henceforth. So you're not only in sync with present, but also in sync with the future. Is something that comes to mind, right? I think broadly, I mean, everyone, I quite like the connect with sports that Vandana brought out. I think, again, great examples there of, I mean, from the clubs, etc. And pretty good. And I think even the employees part resonates very well because I mean, famously AirAsia, if you look at it, it's talked about being an employee first organization rather than a customer first. And when Tony of AirAsia said that, people were initially laughing at it, saying why employee first? But it is true, your employees are your customer first, and the employees will actually carry the brand message forward. So brands have actually a lot of things to be in sync with. I mean, yeah.
Thanks, Sita. You've put it out very well. And also, I think I just want to add here that it's not just about brands failing, which you mentioned. It is also some brands which are underperforming, because they're not in sync. They have a huge potential to perform, but they don't perform. They underperform because they're not in sync. Thank you, everyone. Wonderful discussion. I'm so glad that we were able to conclude it in an hour and 30 minutes. Normally, we conclude this in about an hour and 15 minutes, but then we had a large forum today. LK, any last minute thoughts you want to add on? I have to come back to you in the end. You are the ombudsman, yeah.
No. I think wonderful discussion. All we need to do, I think, as a follow up to this, if we could get circulated with the findings from your little survey, and if I guess you got your two efficient helpers who will kind of summarize this and lead us towards some kind of a scoring board or let's say a list of attributes perhaps. How do we finally, when we end up doing jury duty, well, I'm not doing jury duty, but I'm just watching over it. But when we do jury duty, do we have clear guidelines and parameters set? I think that should be the next to do on this one, which I'm sure you already planned out. So nothing more to add than this.
Wonderful. Thank you. Girisha, anything you want to add?
I have one small point to add. I mean, I was listening to Sridhar's presentation, especially. I mean, his talk points very in an interested way, because I know Adobe tracks a lot of data, etc. And now we are soon going to move to a cookie-less world, right? I mean, so our brands, I mean, people have spent a lot on personalization and this whole data and mining the personal data of customers so that they can do targeted messaging to them, etc. So what happens? Are brands in sync with when the digital world becomes cookie-less, or the GDPR kicks in? Then how do you, and privacy comes in? So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch, right? I mean, again, the ecosystem will be changing due to regulations.
One thought for everybody to take. I think we're attempting too much. Just a sync and then you put a number of plans.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I think that's empathy, right here for the people behind the show. Thank you for that.
Different categories.
Yeah.
In sync on sustainability. From in sync on changing, globalized, whatever. In sync on digital opportunities. Things like that, rather than club all of them.
Correct. Lot of fair. I'm so glad that somebody mentioned about this, and thank you, Nari, for mentioning this. Okay, I think the discussion is over. Just one last minute for all the guys who joined in for the first time. How does it feel? Girish Saab, how does it feel joining?
Wonderful, and glad to be a part of this thing. Giraj, it's a great thing. I think it's really, you have a very great group with a lot of talented minds and great ideas. I think this is a good concept, and will be more than glad to contribute going forward.
Wonderful. So we'll come back to you now. You're on record, and we're recording this. So you are on record. You'll have to sacrifice. You'll have to sacrifice a few outings at the golf course and come here for BRISYL.
Not an issue.
Sandeep, your take on this.
Very, very interesting. Obviously, it's my first interaction, and I must submit that they were very valuable inputs. Just one submission which I would like to make. If we can perhaps ensure that when we come to that final conclusion, we are tangible and we are disruptive. So if we are acknowledging all the disruptions which are happening in the industry and across industry, we should also be disruptive in our approach when we finally land up with the final offering.
Okay, I can add one thing there that, and I think Sanjeev will back me up to it, that despite a lot of pressure from a lot of people that we've been talking to, we chose not to do a consumer survey. We chose that we will have the process the way we have it, where the long list gets pruned to 4 brands by the jury, and then the M.A.D.D. council decides whether the brand is on sync or not, and that's why the number is 50 there. So we've chosen no surveys, not going to the consumer. You're going to be our voices, ears. You will find out what the consumer is thinking, and on the basis of the parameters that are now evolving, we will do a vote. So I think that's one thing which is disruptive. But yes, point well taken. We will also include disruption there and figure out how do we. Though it's very difficult to, Sandeep, it's very difficult to sort of map disruption, because what seems like disruption today may be a stupid idea 2 months later, and something which looks stupid may be disruptive sometime later. Sridhar, this was your first time on M.A.D.D. How does it feel?
I'm actually very grateful to every esteemed panelist. I think there are really diverse perspectives, cross-border as well, thanks to Sandeep and various other guys. Happy to contribute, and very, very elated to work with this very renowned panelists. Thank you very much, Giraj, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Shridhar. Thank you so much. Vivek, your
it was great to hear a cross section of people, and great learning, especially about the internal clients. That was a new perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Giraj.
Thank you. Vandana, your take. This has been your first M.A.D.D.
Yeah, it was really, really informative, and thank you so much for having me here, and super duper excited to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Final goodbye from you. We've got to keep the tradition up.
Yeah. So I think it's been a wonderful discussion, and like Chitra said, so many diverse views put out so clearly, and I think we have a lot to chew on, and I think we'll all get together and make BRISYL very, very good. It will be a disruptor in itself. Yeah. So goodbye and thank you again.
Thank you. Sandeep, you've been able to buy Sanjeev. Huh? So thank you. Thank you, LK. Thank you, Chitra. Thank you, Grisa. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sridhar. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, Jose. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vandana. Thank you, Sandeep. Really appreciate you getting up early and joining us here. Thank you, Akshay. Dhananjay, thank you so much. And Dhananjay, thank you for getting Sandeep on board. Thank you so much. Bye, Jose. Take care. We will connect. Vandana, thank you so much for the perspective that you brought in from sports. Thanks, Akshay. Thanks, Vivek. Vivek, I made that statement that we will do the third BRISYL in Mauritius after the recording started. So you're now committed. You're now committed.
Absolutely committed. Absolutely.
That's Grisa saying yes. All right. Thanks, LK. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
And Dhananjay, yes, old monk.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rupali. Thank you, Shubha. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Bye.